Hey guys, in this video we will build a URL shortener tool. Here's the demo. So if I'm going to Amazon.com, for example, and if I click on any of these products from here, I don't know, let's say this one for example, Amazon gives us a very long URL. So I'm gonna copy this URL from here and I'm gonna paste it here in my tool. So if I click submit, this tool is gonna generate a unique short URL for me. If I copy this URL and paste it in a new tab, it's gonna redirect me to that specific long URL. So this is a very useful tool whenever you work with all these kind of long URLs. All this data is being stored in a database, and if you look here, I have localhost. It's just because I'm using XAMPP right now and I'm working on my localhost and local machine. But if you want to use this on a domain, I'm assuming you want to buy a short domain.com or .net or any kind you would like to. So the domain name is gonna be here. So you'll have domainname.com, for example, / and then you'll have this unique string. This is being generated by the core of this tool in the backend, and then it's been stored in the database, and each long URL has a unique string like that. And then after that, it's just our tool just redirects the user from this short URL to that long URL. So let's go ahead and get started. I say that I'm using XAMPP, so I'm gonna remove everything I have right now in my htdocs because I have the demo right now. So alright, and I'm gonna get started with my index PHP file. First of all, I'm gonna open my VS Code. There you go. So here I'm gonna create a new file, and this new file is gonna be index.php. Alright, and I'll get started with the HTML5 tag. The title is gonna be URL shortener, and here I'm gonna have, alright, we'll have a class. Let's create another folder which is gonna be core, and in this folder we will create a new file, and we will name this file, let's say url.class.php, and here is this file is gonna have all functions, all methods for our tool, which is gonna, validation and all that kind of stuff. So right now let's import it in our index.php. So on the first line we'll have index.php. Alright, and here we want to require once file from core / url.class.php. Okay, and now in our URL class here we actually have to create a configuration to the database. But before we do that, let's create an object here, class. So we'll have class, and let's name it URL shortener, and I forgot to include the PHP tag. Alright, like this, and then we will have a function which is gonna be the main form. So I have function main form, and here we will return our form. So we'll have, actually there's gonna be we'll have a div class, but before we do that, let's just create our form. So I have form action, and we will have an action variable, and we'll assign the validate word to this action variable, and then we'll have method post. Alright, let's close our form, and then here we need to have an input type text field. So we have input type text, and the name is gonna be long URL, like that. And let's have a placeholder which is gonna say enter URL, and of course this field is gonna be required. Now we want to have the submit button, so we have input type submit value submit. You can put anything you want here, of course. Alright, let's save it. So we have URL class, we import this class. So let's copy this function from here, and in our index.php we import URL. Actually misspelled it. It should be url.class.php, and then here we have a new PHP tag, and here we call the function. But before I do that, I want to assign that new object from our URL to a variable. So let's copy this one from here. So we have a new PHP variable, and we assign a new object which is URL Shortener. Now using this object from here, we want to call the function main form. So we have the main form, and just because we have a return, we need to have an echo here. Alright, let's save it, and let me go back and let me just refresh it. For some reason I did a mistake there. Where's that form? Input type submit value. Alright, so we have the form here. Now I want to create a new, I want to add some style into this form, so I'm gonna create a new folder, and this folder is gonna be for CSS, for the CSS file, and I'll create a file in this folder. It's gonna be style.css, and here I'm gonna write the CSS code. So we'll start with body, and the body is gonna have a font family, and this is gonna be Roboto, and then we have sans serif, and then we have the color, let's say 757575, and then we have margin 0, and we also have font size. It's gonna be 15 pixels, and we'll have a background. We'll have an image here, but let's say URL, and here we have icon.png, and I'll show you the icon. I'll have repeat. I actually have this icon right here. You can find it in the source code. I'm gonna leave a URL to the source code on my GitHub, so you can copy this icon as well. So I'm gonna copy it. I'll copy it from here, and I'm going to htdocs. I have CSS here, and I'll paste it here. Right, so I see this icon in CSS folder. Now if I save this and I refresh my page by pressing Ctrl F5, oh, actually nothing is gonna happen because I didn't include it in my index.php file, of course. So here in our index.php, right below the title, we'll have link rel. So here we have style sheet, and we have the file location, which in our case is css/style.css. Alright, so if I save it and go back and refresh, we get this styling here, actually in the F5. It showed that styling for the URL just because in the previous, whenever I showed you the demo, my browser saved that CSS file version, so I had all that styling already saved in the browser. But look, this is how it's supposed to look now. And now we want to create that block and then give we'll have some styling for the URL and for the submit button. So alright, my styling, and we will have a class which is gonna be the form block. So let's go ahead and add it here wherever we have our URL class, and we have div class, and it's gonna be form block, and we close the div right here. Alright, and then below this one, this is gonna be the main div, select container, and then we'll have a title section. If you saw there, I had a section for title, so we have div class. Actually, this is an ID. It's gonna be ID title, and it's gonna get URL shortener title for this tool. Alright, let's create this. I'm gonna save it, and let's create the classes in our CSS file. So we have here form block, and now for our form block, width is 400 pixels. Actually, let's make it 100%, and then max width is gonna be 400 pixels. And then we have display table, and then we have margin top, it's gonna get 10%. Alright, and then we have margin left is gonna be auto, margin right it's gonna be auto. So we just center this block. Now background color is gonna be RGBA, and let's give a value like 0.1. Alright, padding 5 pixels, and border radius is gonna be about 5 pixels too. So we have border radius 5 pixels. Now we have the title section. So here we have form block, and then we have title, and in here we have the background color, and it's gonna be EE8208, and then we have padding 10 pixels, and then we have color, which is white, and then we have font, font weight, and this is gonna be bold. We also had font size 20 pixels, and text align center, border, so we have a border radius, and we have border top right radius was 5 pixels, and we had the same thing for the left corner. Right, and then we had text shadow, and this was -1 pixel, -1 pixel, 0, and then RGBA and here we have 0.2. Alright, let's save this and let's go back and see what we've got over there. So if I refresh it now, we get the URL, this is the title, and then we've got form block styling here. If you see with a background color like transparent. Alright, now it's time to add another div class to our form, and this is going to be the body. So we have div class body, and we want to close it right below our closing form tag. So we have div, and I'm gonna align this properly. So we have this body class right now. Let's create it. Here we have form block, and we have body, and here we have just a background color white, and we also have padding 10 pixels. Alright, let's see what we've got. So we get this white color now, and below the title, where is the body class. And now we want to add some styling to our input type, input text field, and then submit button. And to do that, we should go back to our style CSS, and we have here input, and we get type text, and this is for our text input. So we have height 35 pixels, and then we have width of 100%, and then excuse me, and then we have margin bottom, and it's gonna be 10 pixels, and then we also have box sizing, and this box size is gonna be a border box. Alright, and then we have padding, and we'll have 4 pixels on top, and on top and on the bottom, and then 5 pixels on the side. And then we'll have background, let's say background is gonna be white, and then border, we have 1 pixel solid, and let's say D0, 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 and then we will have a border radius. So we have border radius of 3 pixels. Alright, let's save it, and let's see what we've got here. Alright, so we get the styling for the URL for this field. Now let's do the same thing for our input type submit button. So we have input type submit, and here we have height, the same, is gonna be 35 pixels, and then we have box sizing, which is border box, and then we have padding, it's gonna be the same, 4 pixels, and actually not 4 pixels and 10 pixels, and then background is gonna be 65 CA19, so we get that light green. I really like that color. And then we have color white, and then font weight is gonna be bold. Alright, and then we have border 0 because we don't want to have any border, and then we just have border radius. So border radius, it's 3 pixels, and then we have cursor pointer. Alright, let's save this, go back, and let's see what we've got. So we have everything we need here. The styling, the form is working. Now let's continue with our, so we call this object in our index.php file, and then we get this function from this URL shortener object. Let's go back to our URL shortener object. Now here we want to create a so whenever we submit this function, whenever I click on this submit button, we want to call another function which is gonna check this information from this field to make sure that the field is not empty. And by the way, actually it should show right now. I'm not sure why. The spell needs to be required. So if I click on submit, yeah, we get notification from the browser, but if we enter space, we shouldn't be able to do that. So we should check that in PHP on the server side. And let's go ahead and create that validation. We'll have another function in our main form, in our URL shortener object. This function name is gonna be validate. Right, and we will call this function only when we submit this form. So how do we know when the user submits the form? And to do that, if you see here in our form, we have an action variable, and we assign to this variable the validate keyword. All right, this validate keyword, it's not related to the function name though. Now here, whenever we click on the submit button, we want to check if there's any data in the get method, because let's see, validate post, because this goes into the get method. It's changing in the URL. So if you see here, I have localhost. Now if I click submit, let me enter this. So if I click submit, we get action equal to validate. All right. So we should check all the time in our get method. So if we will have an a variable in PHP which is gonna check is set if there's any data, if there's any value in the get from get method in the action variable. If we have any data here, then we assign this data to our a variable. So we assign the get action data. All right, otherwise we don't assign anything, we just assign an empty string. All right, just make sure this variable from here matches with this one from here. Okay, now in our body right here, so it's gonna be right before we have this form tag, we want to call this validate function only in that case when we have any data in our action. But in which case do we have data in our action? Only in that case we clicked on the submit button and our get method gets the value from this value, the validate value. So let's concatenate this. All right, like this. And here we need two parentheses. So here we will check if it's gonna be like if the a value is equal to validate, then we call this function from this object, which is validate. So we type in this validate. Otherwise we don't show anything, we show an empty string. All right, so this is our function here. Now let's return, gonna return something like validation, and I will save it. Now let's see what happens here. I'm gonna refresh and let's enter something, just something, click submit, and whenever we click submit we get this validation word from our function, which means this function is being called only after the user clicked on submit button. All right, now in this validation function we can work with our data and just check it and insert it in the database. And actually before inserting it in the database, let's create a configuration file which is gonna connect our script to the database. So in the main root folder, in my case htdocs. I'm gonna create a new file which is gonna be config.php, and here we'll have the configuration to the database connection. And actually, just for the sake of time, guys, it's a small snippet, and I'll paste it here, and I'm gonna explain everything. If you're following along with me, just pause the video and copy this stuff from here, guys. So what we have here is the default time zone, and I put America, New York. It gets the time zone right now for our for all the data we will insert into the database. And then we have a class which is connect, and this class extends video because I'm gonna be using this driver to insert data into the database, to work with database pretty much. And then here we have a construct in this class, a public function construct, and here we have the connection to the database, all the credentials. So here we have the database type, which is MySQL, and then the host is localhost, which in your case, in most of the cases, if you even use a shared hosting, it should be a local host as well, but you make sure you get that from your hosting. You should have the credentials to connect to your database. And then we have the database name, which is URL Shortener in my case, and then we have the root, this is the user, and then the password, and I don't have any password, that's why I left it empty. And here the database name, let me change this to, I'm gonna create another database, and let's say URL Shortener. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like that. The only reason I wanted to change it is because I have already a database like that, which was used to show you the demo, but I'm gonna delete it and then I'll create it again. So let's save this file and let's open our database. So I will have localhost / php myadmin. Alright, and then here I'll click on databases, and here I have this URL shortener. This is the one. Yeah, so this is the one I had there, and I'm gonna drop it. Alright, and now I'm gonna create it again. So let me copy this name just to make sure I'm not misspelling it and we don't get stuck again. Alright, so URL shortener, and then the codification, I'm choosing UTF-8 general CI. Where is it? General CI, UTF-8 general CI. Create, and mainly here we will have the ID, a long URL and short URL, so we will have 3 columns. And the name of the table, let's name it, let's say shorten URLs. So we have shorten URLs. Alright, click create or click on go. So here we have ID, it's integer, let's make it 10 length, and this is gonna be auto increment column. Right, it's gonna be the primary column. And here we have the long URL, which is gonna be, so I'm gonna leave it, or is the string long text. And then here we have the short URL, and this is gonna be varchar, and I'll say here like 50 just in case, but usually it's gonna be like 5, I think 5 character long. I put 50 just in case. So click save. Alright, so we have this table right here, it's ready. Now we should import this configuration file in our URL class.php file. So on the first line we want to import it, so we have here require once, and we have here we will have the full path to this file, because on most hostings it may work if you put it directly, it may work if you, but in this way, in the way I'm gonna make it right now, it's gonna work on most of the hostings. So we have here real path, and then we have dir name, and then we have file. Alright, and then we have concatenation here, and then we have slash dot dot, because we go back from core, we go one level back to find this file, so we have slash dot dot slash config dot php. Alright, let's save it and let's make sure we don't have any errors on the page. So let's remove everything, type in localhost, okay, it's here, click on submit, doesn't say. Alright, so everything works. Now here we will insert in our validation. So let's continue with our validation. What we want to do here is get the long URL from our field, insert it. We will actually trim it, so we remove the spaces from before the URL and after the URL, and then we want to generate a short URL for it and then insert it into database. Alright, let's do that. So we have here database, we assign the connection, a new object which is connect, and this object name is from here. You see we have class connect, so here I'm just assigning this object to the DB variable, and so now I can use this DB variable whenever I'm trying to use the database or insert or select something from the database. Alright, so the way I did right here, I'm gonna copy this stuff and I'm gonna paste it here, and in this way I'm gonna check the data from the post method, which has a variable long URL. So we'll just change the action to long URL, and here I'm gonna trim it, so we have, actually this needs to be long URL. Alright, and then here using long URL we want to trim long URL, so we remove the spaces from before and after the URL, and then if it's different than empty long URL, so after we trim it, if it still has something, if it still has any kind of value in it, that means there's char string, then we want to generate a short URL for this long URL. After we generate short URL, we want to insert all that data into the database. And let's do that by assigning to a new variable which is short URL. We will assign a new function which is gonna be like another function from this object, which we will create right now. And the name of that function is gonna be generate short URL, like this. Let's stop right here. I'm gonna leave some space between these functions so you don't get it's easier to read. Now let's create that function. Function name generate short URL, like this, and here is gonna be an end variable which is gonna we will assign to this variable. This is gonna be a parameter which is gonna have the length of our short URL. So let's put here we want to get a short URL generated by 5 characters, and here's gonna be n, which is gonna be 5 right now, and then here we assign, of course, the new, we have db, we assign a new object connect, and then here we want to get the, we will have characters, so we have characters, from which characters we want to generate this URL. This is a unique string we are trying to generate right now. So we have here, I'm gonna paste it here. So we have 1 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and then we have the all lowercase all letters from the alphabet. So we have A B C D E F until Z. All right, and we want to have only lowercase characters, letters. All right, and then here we have short URL variable, which is empty. For now, we don't assign any value, and then we will have a for. Yeah, we will have an for here, and this for is gonna, so randomly is gonna pick one of these, because this is like this is like a is like an array, if you think like that, in that way. So we will pick randomly letters from here 5 times. So we will let's say like that, this for is gonna read everything from here 5 times, because we have 5 here. So the first time is gonna get a variable randomly from, let's say, E, and then the second time it's gonna go through it, is gonna pick a number, for example, and so on until it gets 5 characters randomly, and it's assigning everything to the short URL. So we have for E equal to 0, and then E and then, so this cycle is gonna run while n is greater than E, so which is gonna be 4 times. So we have n and then E++. All right, and then here we have index variable, index, and we have rand 0 and Esterland by Esterland characters. So it gets the length of the characters, the length of this, and then from 0 until the length we want to generate a random key from this character. All right, between 0 and then, how long is this one? I don't know exactly, but you can count how long this is. All right, and then we put -1 just because every time this PHP tries to count these keys, it starts from 0. So we have -1 just to be on the right track. And then here we have short URL, and we assign the characters, and the index is index. All right, so as I already said, it gets a random number from 0 until the length. So let's say we have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 31, 32, 33, 35, 36, 36. So from 0 to 36, it gets a number first time because it runs 4 times. So first time it runs, it gets a number from 0 to 13, and it assigns it to the short URL. So we have characters by, let's say first time is 10, right? It gets the 10, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. It's 9. All right, it gets 9 and it assigns it to short URL, and then it goes next time and runs another one. So in this way, it gets a random string from these characters. All right, now below, we want to get this string and check in the database to see if there is already a URL which has this string, because we want to have a unique URL for each long URL. So we have check equal to db. So using the connection to the database, we want to prepare an SQL and a query. So we have here select ID from shortened URL, just to make sure this is the name of the table. So we select from here. All right, URLs, where short URL it's equal to short new URL, let's say. All right, and then below here, using check, we want to execute this query. All right, and here we have new URL. All right, and this new URL gets the value from the short URL, which is this one, like this. All right, and then after that, so we have that, we get the execution. Now we want to check if it found anything. So we have a number variable, and we assign check, for example. Let's make this one check URL. So we have check URLs. It's gonna be more clear. All right, check URL and fetch all using PDO driver, PDO fetch column like this. All right, and so we're fetching all the columns found in using this query, and then here we want to check. So we have an if statement. If actually, so here we want to check, let's say existing URL. We have another variable, and let's name it existing, check existing URLs. So we have check existing URL, and we assign a let's say count the num variable, which is the number. So what we do here, I was just I'm just thinking at the same time and talking about what I'm doing here, guys. So I select everything. I select the IDs from the database, the entries which have this short URL generated by this for loop, and then I execute it here. So, and then after that, I assign everything I found in the database to my number, like let's say number found, or entries found. So entries found, I assign everything to the entries found, and then after that I count how many entries I found, and I assign this number to the check existing URL, and then I will have an if statement which is gonna check existing URL. If check existing URL is different than zero, then that means that there is already a URL like that in the database, and we should do something to make it unique, because we can't use the same URL for two long URLs, because it's gonna throw an error, because you can't redirect one URL to two URLs. So it makes sense to make it unique. In this case, we will concatenate. So we'll have short URL, and we assign to this short URL everything we have currently in the short URL, plus we assign also the number of entries we have into the database found with this new URL. So which is going to be count check existing URL, like this. But just not to confuse you guys, entries found, so this entries found in my source code, I have it like num, which means number. So I'm gonna leave it num, because I have it in my source code. So just not to confuse you, and I don't want this code to look a lot different than what I have in my source code. I'm gonna leave it num, like number, abbreviation of number. And here it's gonna be, so we have check, we get count number. All right, check this one. If it's different than zero, we assign the short URL, everything we have right now in the short URL, and then we'll also count the num, the number of entries we have in the table. All right, so this is gonna make it unique, and then after that we just return the short URL. All right, hope this is clear, guys. And then what we do here, we get this URL and we assign it to the short URL. So this variable from here and this one from here, they're different. They don't have a relationship. And we assign this URL now to this variable, which is short URL. It has the same name, but they're different variables. And then next we insert everything into the database. So we have a variable which is insert data. So, and I have db prepare. So we prepare a query to the database, which is insert into our tables shorten URLs, and we have here are the columns where we want to insert. So we have long URL and we have short URL. All right, and the values we have here are, long URL, and this is the variables we will use in the execute function, and then we have short URL. Let's long URL and short URL, can see like that. And then here, using this insert data, we want to execute this query. All right, and what we have long URL. So long URL is basically the URL we have in the and sorry about that, guys. Here it's not get, it needs to be post. So we have post and then post, because in our form it's post right here. We send this data through the post method. I'm sorry, I didn't see that before. So we have post, okay, and then the long URL we insert in the database is the URL from our field, because that's what we insert over there. So we copy this variable from here, like that here, and then the short URL is the URL we've got from the generate short URL function, which is this one, like this. All right, and we insert it, and after we insert it, we have another if statement, which is gonna check insert data. If insert data, so if data has been inserted successfully, then we want to output the URL, the short URL, right? And let's just output something like data inserted for now, just to make sure that all this functionality works without any error. So let's go back and let's refresh this. Let's see, our table is now empty, right? I'm gonna refresh it, works fine. Now if I insert empty space, I click enter, nothing happens. Nothing happens actually, because let me see, we didn't have an else statement. Okay, so we shouldn't have anything in our table. Okay, it doesn't insert anything. Alright, let's go back. Have localhost like that. Now if I just paste something here randomly like this, click submit, we have an error. You have an error in your SQL syntax. Check the manual corresponding MariaDB, insert into shorten URLs value at line 1, URL class PHP 32. So we go to 32 right here, insert into this. It looks like I have an error right here, and let's see what exactly. DB prepare, insert data, DB, we have connection. So let me see, maybe I misspelled this, the structure, long URL, short URL. Alright guys, so I have a misspelling here. I forgot to add T. Alright, let's save it. Let's go back. Oops. So let's go back and refresh it, and let's add something here. Click submit, and we get here data inserted. Now if we check our table, we have the data here, long URL, and then it generates a short URL, which is EZRZI. And then, okay, so it looks like everything works fine. Let's go back and just refresh it. Looks like it works fine, except here where we have our echo. Now here we should return it because we're using echo here, so we should use return now. So right now we want to return something like, here's your short URL, and we will do that like this. Well, first of all, I would like to center that, so we'll have p style text align center. All right, and then I'm gonna close p here. So here we will have, here is your short URL br. All right, and then we will have a concatenation here because I want to output something from the server. I want to output something from PHP, and we will have parentheses like this, and we will check is set. If is set server HTTPS, I'm checking if the server, if the website is using HTTPS right now, is the SSL protocol, and if and I want to also check if the HTTPS is active, if it's on. So we have server HTTPS, it's equal to on, then we output what we have here, HTTPS. Excuse me. But if not, which means like else, we output HTTP, and then what comes after HTTP. So we have here like this. So if you check right now the website, we get like HTTP like that. All right, we have 2 slashes after HTTP. But if we have HTTPS, it's gonna output HTTPS, and then all this stuff after HTTPS, and then the domain name. So here we should have concatenate, and we have server, and we have server name, server hyphen name, underscore name, and then another concatenation, and then here is the slash after. So here is the domain name slash, and then here is the short URL. So we have short URL, all right, like this. Okay, let's save it and let's go back and let's see. Okay, an expected error 42. Okay, I already have a dot. I didn't have to add another one because I have it here. Alright, it works fine. Now let's insert a, let me actually get something from Amazon.com. I already had saved that in my fields, but okay, so I'm gonna paste it here, click submit. So here right now it shows here is your short URL. So we have this short URL, but it doesn't work because if I copy it and paste it, it's not gonna work. I still have to build the functionality for it. Alright, so to do that we should create another file, which is gonna be, this file is gonna be URL. So we will build it in the main folder in htdocs, and this file is gonna be url.php, and here we have to require the configuration. So let me just close this. We'll close the style because I'm not gonna need that, and I'll just copy this require once, and I will paste it. Just open your PHP tag, paste it paste this one here. We get configuration to the database, and then we have a variable which is URL. And we should also, actually this becomes kind of like it's kind of tricky, because like this variable, whenever we will access this URL, this variable is going to be a get a variable from the get method is going to be the value of a variable from the get method. And we will use htaccess file to redirect to rewrite the rule of the URL. So let's go ahead and create another file. Let's leave this like this for now. Let's create another file which is gonna be .htaccess, and in this file it's kind of like a configuration to to communicate to the server using from our PHP script, communicate to the server to tell the server which rules we want to write, or any kind of stuff like that. So here we want to do something like options indexes. So this line is for whenever we have a folder, for example, here. So we have options hyphen indexes. I'm not gonna save this file right now, but if you go on the website, like on the script, if you pay attention, we have a core folder, right? So if I will access, for example, localhost/core, I will see this url.class.php file, and in this case I can access them like that. I can see everything I have in this directory. Now if I create this file .htaccess and put this line here, and if I save it, and if I go back and refresh this page, it's gonna tell me access forbidden, because I'm hiding everything, all these folders which don't have an index.php file or index.html, or any doesn't have any index, then it's not gonna show anything. It's gonna protect my data. All right, the next line is gonna be the redirections. So here we want to turn on the rewrite engine option. And it's gonna be on. Come on. And we have on, and then we have rewrite rule. And we want to rewrite this rule, because let me just remove it. I will show you. I will explain a little bit better on what this is exactly. So let's continue with our URL. Skip this one like this, htaccess. Let's continue with our url.php file. So here we have URL, and basically let's see, url.php. We will call this URL like so. We had that URL. Let's insert another URL. So we have this localhost. Basically, how do we access this URL? We will have something like this localhost, and then instead of action we will have URL, and then the URL is going to be equal to this URL. It's going to be url.php actually here. Wait, so we'll have /url.php and then question mark URL, and it's going to be equal to the unique URL. So we have it here like this. That's how we're gonna call all these unique URLs. All right. Now, in our URL file, we will check if we have anything in our get method, because this is a get method, right? And we have that URL variable in the get method, and we will check that. So we have URL variable, and we assign to the URL variable the data we have in the URL get variable. So we have is set, and I'm making sure this is get because it's real get, so I don't make another mistake. So we have get URL. All right. So if we have anything in the get, so URL. So we have if I have anything in the get URL variable, then I assign that to the URL variable. So I assign it here, get URL. Otherwise, I'm assigning an empty string. After I check this, I have db variable and assign a new object which is connect, and then here we want to I want to get the long URL because I have this URL means this is the short URL. Now using this short URL, I want to select the long URL from the database and then redirect the user to the long URL. So I have get long URL, and I'm using connection to the database. I prepare the query, and here I have select long URL from shorten URLs, where the short URL is equal to short URL, and here we have get URL, and we execute the query, and here I have short URL. Just make sure this variable match with this one from here. So short URL is gonna be the URL we have in the get method. Alright, we have it like this, and then below here we have another variable which is gonna be get long URL. Well, actually here I'm gonna leave it none because it's something similar to what we did here. We get the number of the entries we have in the table, so we get a number of entries, and then here we get this is supposed to be long. Let me spell it. Just make sure, guys, you add an O here. Long. Alright, get long URL. So num equal to get long URL, and then we have fetch all PDO, and we have fetch column. Alright, and then here we have if count num, if we count num different than 0, that means we have found the URL. So in our case, if this num variable is different than 0, that means it's a positive number. And that thinking about the way we generate unique IDs, we know that this is gonna have just one entry, and in this case we just redirect the user to the new long URL. So we have here header, location, and using the concatenation we have num 0 because 0 is the long URL. Alright, and else we'll have an echo which is gonna say this URL doesn't exist, just like this. Now let's save it, let's go back and let's refresh that page, the one we have here. So if I'm just gonna copy it first and paste it, and still we have like, what's this, open stream permission denied. So I didn't include this one. Actually, if the URL is in the main folder, in the root folder, then we should remove this slash and 2 points right there. Alright, refresh, and we get another undefined method connect prepare. Okay, so I misspelled that prepare function. Sorry about that, guys. It needs to be prepare. Alright, refresh it, and I get another error which is saying that shorten URLs select. So I probably misspelled something here. Select load URL. Okay, so it needs to be from. Sorry guys, it's been late. Alright, so it redirected me to a, okay, of course, because I just inserted something, you know, randomly. Now let me copy this URL and paste it here again. Submit. Okay, and I have this. So 9NL, let's check in the database. Like 9NL3A is this URL, because before we didn't have this URL, that's why it redirected me there. So we have here url.php, and we have URL equal to this. Right now, if I access this, now it redirects me to long URL. All right, but now I want to have it like this. I want to access it in this way, right? But it doesn't work. Now to do that, we go back to our htaccess, and this is where we use this rewrite engine. Now we turn it on, rewrite engine all, and then here we want to rewrite a rule. So we will have rewrite rule, and we want to rewrite rule. Here we will have the following code. I'm going to explain what it does in a second. So we have like that, parentheses. All right, we got this. All right, dot. All right, and then we have a slash like this. All right, now here, so we want to write the rule. I also have url.php here, php question mark URL equal to $1, which is variable, and then I have r equal to 301 and l. All right, so as you already know, this is the structure of the URL we're using right now, which works. Okay, and we have url.php, and then we have question mark, and then we have URL equal to the unique URL whatever we have from the database. Now using this rewrite rule, we say that, you see, we want to get the number $1 means it's a variable, and we have this data right here after the slash. All right, and this is everything comes before the slash, which is in our case localhost. We have localhost slash, whoa, where is that? Let me copy this. So we have localhost slash url.php question mark URL equal to this one. All right, so this from here is this one. Where is that? Is this one. All right, and now we rewrite the rule. We rewrite this rule. We want this rule to be in this way. So we have just the domain name slash and then the data from here. So basically this htaccess just gets this URL and redirects it to the same URL but in different format. Now this r equal to 301 code means permanent redirect, and it permanently redirects this. And this l just, it's like in some cases it works, which is letting know that is letting know the server not to rewrite the rule of the URL which is being rewritten, right? It's kind of like a breakpoint or something like that. So let's save this now here, and let's go back like this one, for example, and press enter. Let's copy this URL. Now it's supposed to work. So yeah, now it works. We paste that. Now let's copy another URL. Let's see, we have what other URLs. Let's get this one. Let's paste it here, submit, and we get this URL from here. And if I paste it there and click submit, it redirects me to this specific URL. And we have everything stored in the database, long URLs and short URLs, and all of them are unique. So you can actually modify this one. You can add functionality, like for example, how many times people clicked on this URL, on this short URL, by adding another column to your table, which is gonna say clicks. And whenever somebody clicks on the URL, you can come here and increase, update the data you have in the database, for those clicks. You add one more click, it's like just adding clicks into the database, and then it's gonna be like a statistics, but it's up to you. You can use it in any way you want. As so that's it for this tutorial, guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you like the video, like it on YouTube, thumbs up, subscribe for my channel. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.